Hillel, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here.
Sure. I'm happy to be on.
First off, can you just start by telling me how you found out about this attack by Hamas?
Sure. So I don't live in the U.S. right now, but I happen to have been at my parents' house, and they live in New Jersey. I had gone there with my wife and 10-month-old to visit them for a few weeks, and I had gone to the synagogue on Saturday morning, just like we normally would, And on Saturday, we don't use phones or technology or anything like that. So I was at the synagogue, and somebody had walked into the synagogue and had told the rabbi that something like super bad had happened in Israel, and the rabbi knew that I used to serve in the IDF, and that I am a reservist. So he called me over and said, something like super bad has happened, and and you should go and check your phone. And this was like on the Sabbath itself, which is not something that we tend to do. But in the cases of life and death, so we do. So I had left, and I had ran home in the pouring rain, straight home to check my phone to see if I was called up, and I was indeed called up.
Now, there is a viral video that we've talked about here that does show you arriving back there. Kind of describe for me what we're seeing in the video and what the reaction was when you went back over to Israel.
Yeah. So it took me about 2 days to get home, and it usually just takes about like 9 hours. But because there were no flights, so it was a bit of a story to get home. So I had left. I had left the States on a Monday evening, and I got to Israel on Wednesday at about 2:30 in the morning. And at 2:30 in the morning, like you kind of expect an airport to just be super quiet. But I had walked out of the airport, and about 200 high school students had come to the airport because they knew that a bunch of soldiers who were abroad, were coming home to help defend the state of Israel. And as soon as I walked out, they were cheering. And when I got to the end of the line, we kind of just danced, and it was a huge surprise, and that moment still gives me a motivation now, a whole week later.
What is it like to be in Israel right now versus several weeks ago? Because we talk about the violence that does exist in the Middle East. We know that we've covered that, but this is something that is so different, and I don't think people really truly understand that. We've talked to so many people who have said there's always violence in the Middle East, but this is something that is so different, right?
Yeah, look, that Saturday, and that was probably the worst day in the history, the worst day in the history of Israel. The most the most Jews were killed since the Holocaust. I think that says it all. I think that that was just a horrible day, and how Hamas killed them, killed all of those babies, and had taken so many hostages. It was just a day that that couldn't have even been your worst nightmare. And it still is. It's still something that's hard to believe that actually happened in 2023. Yeah.
And politics aside here, what does it mean to you as someone who lived in the U.S. to see President Biden heading over there and showing his support for Israel? Now, we are told by the White House that the point of that trip is essentially to show solidarity with Israel. What does it mean to you and to folks out there in Israel?
I mean, it makes us feel a lot more confident. To have the back of such a strong and great country. And as you said, politics aside, I think that that each person here does feel an appreciation for all that President Biden has done since the attack, and all the support that we've received from the White House. It's amazing.
Hillel, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. Is there anything you want to add before I let you go?
I think that's all. Thank you so much for the time.
All right. Be safe.